Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Peter Abraham. I'm a second career registered nurse focused on hospice and palliative care, and I'm also a certified end-of-life doula through the International Doula Life Movement, also known as IDLM. If you're new to this channel, welcome. Thank you for visiting. In this channel, we talk about issues related to death and dying. After all, we are all going to die, and death should not be a mystery. In this channel, we have discussions from my fellow hospice and palliative care nurses, for my fellow holistic nurses that look at you and me as a complete human being, not just focused on pharmaceuticals, looking at mind, body, spirit, and soul. I have video discussions for my fellow end-of-life doulas and others who are in this field as end-of-life professionals, such as social workers and chaplains, volunteer coordinators, and so on. We'll have discussions for caregivers as well. The topic for today's video is going to be an overview of an upcoming book in my Bridges to Eternity book series, specifically geared for end-of-life doulas, but also fitting for other end-of-life professionals. So in a few moments, I'll switch you into what I call tutorial mode, which has my picture in a corner or so of the video while I walk you through the introduction and chapter 1 of this upcoming book, plus show you the chapter outline and proposed appendixes that may change as the book is being developed. I really enjoy research and writing. I've written a number of books. You may want to call them guides, depending on your point of view as to how many chapters or pages are in a book. I have books for hospice nurses, a 21 book series, technically 20 because the 21st book is for those considering becoming a hospice nurse. I have books for my fellow holistic nurses, for which Marie Peppers, in her several courses dealing with how to be a nurse remotely for both LPNs and registered nurses, and she utilizes my book on motivational interviewing in several of her courses. I have books for caregivers, and most recently, a series of books for end-of-life doulas. One of the books that I'll be developing a course for the International Life Movement is, let me get it more centered in the screen, and let me get the bookmark out, Crucial End-of-Life Conversations. And so there'll be a 14 to 17 week course. I'm hoping to be released much later this year. I want value to go into everything that I'm producing. So before we go into the tutorial mode, I like to encourage all of my listeners and those watching my videos on YouTube to practice skills to build resilience. So most of my viewers are adults, and some of them, I love you, Robert, if you're watching, and it's a platonic type of love. 77-year-old who is just active in retirement. I really enjoy your videos, Robert, because it encourages me. I'm 62, much, depending on your point of view, a little bit younger to a lot younger. But Robert is extremely active in his retirement, so he motivates me to be more active in my life. But as we get older, and this could even be as a teenager, you get hit with life storms. And most of the time, they're not planned. They're spontaneous, they're sporadic. And some of us really push us to dark places. And I've been there, where you think the only way out is to end it. And I'm being very vulnerable with you on that. And that's part of why I work every day to build resilience, because I don't want to be in those dark places ever again. And I've been there several times. So that, to me, there are three pillars. There may be some of you that work in mental health that might say there's more, Peter, and that's comment below. This is a non-judgmental channel. But for me, there are three pillars. Uh, there's my faith in Christ Jesus. There's walking in forgiveness. That's something I try to do several times a day, and it can be extremely, extremely hard. The past few weeks I've been just reviewing my what for lack of better words took me out of the field of hospice. I write books, but took me out of field work, and I have to be in almost continuous forgiveness for several people who were involved in some crisis moments in my life that I need to work on forgiving and ensuring that I really forgive. But what I work on with all my viewers is I encourage you to work on areas of gratitude. What are you grateful for? So I'm grateful for several things as we come into starting this video shortly. I'm grateful for the Maria Chamber of Commerce, for Donna Angel and the other members of the chamber who put together. I went to a lunch and learn last Tuesday, 1 week ago today. And time will tell if Rhonda and Andrea and some of the workers I met from CHI St. Joseph's in Berea, whether they're going to pass my business card along and utilize my services as a life transition coach. I prefer saying it that way versus an end of life doula because from a realistic point of view, I meet people where they're at. I can help somebody who's 18-year-old who needs an advanced care plan done. They may not need me for end of life, hopefully for several decades. But I'm also there for those who need me when they're chronically ill, whether they're considering, do they go with palliative care, do they go with hospice care, and they need somebody who's independent of the actual palliative and hospice care agency guiding them along the way. And I do this both remotely and in person in Madison County, Kentucky. But time will tell. I'm grateful to Anna Adams and um, Aspen. Aspen, even though you have a short last name, my short-term memory competes with your short last name. But Aspen bought my Crucial End of Life Discussions book and is saying to Anna Adams, the founder and leader of the International Life Movement, we have to get Peter to write a course, get Peter to develop a course. So it is on my to-do list to work through that. And today I verified I can log into their course system. And I reached out to Anna because I believe she has a slide deck or a starter framework. She sent me the brand kit. So I built out her brand kit 90% close. I just didn't add a handful of logos that I don't plan on using, but she did give me access to. But I'm working on building all of that out. And this coming Thursday, I'm so grateful to be able to teach how dementia works in hospice eligibility to not only the students who are currently attending and past graduates of IDLM, but to the public. And several people have signed up, and there's a hospital medical director who's on the fence. Kevin, if you watch this video, I'm rooting for you. I purposely made a coupon code just for you that even though you could probably afford the $10.95, I encourage you come and watch and learn. And not saying that I could teach you a thing or two because you are a hospice medical director. I'm just hoping that you could see the value because you were an important participator of a recent discussion that I did a video on, that another end-of-life doula asked a good question, like, if you're going to hire a end-of-life doula, here are red flags. And so she gave a number of red flags that are crucial because I'm certified, but in all honesty, your high school graduation matters more than the certification from a point of view. The point of view that, as much as I value IDLM, I'm now a part-time instructor. I'm the lead person for the continuing education development. I've already done one session. We have another session this Thursday, July 24th. But right now, none of the schools are governed. There's no accreditation. So high schools are governed and they are accredited within their states. And even if you're homeschooled, there's governing bodies. Well, right now for end-of-life doulas, death doulas at large, none of the schools are accredited. No, not one. Now, I am so proud of Anna Adams, Pam Carter, and the executive leadership behind the International Dual Life Movement, because what they've been working on, they are on the cutting edge. So that if tomorrow or next week or next month or sometime in 2025 or 2026, whether it be through the states individually or through the National End of Life Alliance, NEDA, which is what I'm rooting for, because they're an independent body. They're not a governing body, but they're independent. That if the lines were drawn in the sand, this is the minimum. This is, let me get my hands up higher for the camera. This is the minimum. Oh my word, I can't find the center. I'm bad. I'm horrible. So this is the minimum of what needs to be taught by every end of life school. IDLM would be up here. They would be way above the minimum because they work diligently. When you take one of their courses, most courses, there's three ways to take it. Not all, but most. You could take it on site, and then Ann and I are in discussion that maybe in 2026 it'll be on site in Kentucky. We're work in progress. But right now there's a number of geographic locations that you can go in person on site. And in certain locations like San Antonio, Texas, for example, if you go on site, you are actually also involved in taking care of people who are on hospice, people who are dying. So you're getting, this is one of the points Kevin brought up. So Kevin, if you're watching, I'm rooting that you make it for Thursday night because you brought up an extremely critical point that I agree with you. I'm in union with you that end-of-life doulas should have experience with people who are terminally ill, especially experience if in the dying moments, if possible. And IDLM does that for their on-site courses in certain locations. The live courses, and that's the course I took, and that's the course I'm taking again in August 12th through October 16th. I'm taking Pam Carter's Advanced Life Planning course through the IDLM, and that I paid for that. And the benefit for students that graduate is once you're a graduate, not only can you audit any class, I shouldn't take it back, audit the classes you've taken as many times as you desire. You get continuing education classes for free, but you also get a discount for any future class. So you pay once the full price, and then all future classes. So that advanced life planning class, I got a discount that I'm taking. And I'm taking the live version. And so the live version it's through Google Meet, and they do recording. So you can, if you can't make it one night, you could watch it within, they try to have them up within 24 to 48 hours. You could watch the recorded session. But because it's live, it's interactive. You get to interact with your teacher as if you were there. You get to interact with your fellow students. They'll do breakout rooms that really push your thought process and your thinking. Then you have to come out of that break room, and typically one person who in your group is appointed to discuss, well, how did it go? What were your trouble points? What were your good points? What did you learn? What do you want your other students to know? This is so enriching and encouraging. And they'll do the discussion groups of write a discussion post and respond to two of your students. And they'll have quizzes. So this is very impactful. So I'm grateful for IDLM, not only for what they're teaching, but for the opportunity to do the continuing education. And by the way, so that you're aware of what's upcoming, and I don't know, I have to talk to Anna, because I'd love for every class to be available for the public for a small, reasonable fee. But August 10th is going to be palliative care, a complete head-on. What is palliative care, and how do we as end-of-life doulas interact with our families to encourage palliative care and engage palliative care? So August 10th, and just so that you're aware, July 24th is a Thursday, so that's Thursday of this week. Starting in August through the rest of this year, it's going to be on a Sunday evening. We're targeting 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So for an hour. So August 10th is palliative care. August 24th is how do end-of-life doulas help the families transition from palliative care to hospice. These are critically important topics for my fellow end-of-life doulas. And Kevin, if you're hearing this, there's so many reasons why I gave you a coupon code to attend for free. There's so many reasons because I believe that you have a lot of value. I agreed when you made that discussion point, I agree with you. I'm in agreement with you. I'm a hospice and palliative care registered nurse. I'm in agreement with you. But I believe that if you attend this one, you may have input. You said that you would zip it. I appreciate that. You said you'd be a fly on the wall. I appreciate that. But in reality, at the end, and maybe it's not live, maybe it's not on camera, but you'll come back to me on LinkedIn and say, Peter, this is what went well. This is what you may want to improve. Or you might say, Peter, you hit the target. Keep up the good work. And I'm open for whatever constructive advice you have to say. So August 10th, palliative care. August 24th, and just so you know, this is going to be one of the few times that in a month that we're going to do 2 sessions. Normally it's 1 session a month. But IDLM is doing the summer summit. I'm going to put in a link below. This is free if you register. It's free if you register. The summer summit, July 29th to July, I believe it's the 31st. They're having a palliative care doctor on board in this summit to provide education for free. For free. Wow. And so part of why we're doing this session in August, 2 of them in palliative care, is just to reinforce everything that she's teaching. And just so that you know, I don't got advanced. I don't have like, here's the presentation this doctor's doing. But I've been in hospice and palliative care long enough that I am rooting that this is going to be a wonderful thing. So August 10th, and I already have everything prepared. I just have to, the obsessive compulsive me has to practice it to death. No pun intended. But August 10th, palliative care. August 24th, how do we as doulas help the family and the patient if they're with it at that point in time? And hopefully our goal is to get the patient on the hospice at the 6-month mark if we can. But we're there to be advocates and facilitators. And part of why I'm so excited to get into this tutorial, which I'm going to go into in a moment, is if we care plan how we're going to do things, it's more likely to happen than if we're doing everything by the seats of our pants. So let me get into this video. I value your time. I don't want to abuse your time. Thank you so much. And if you can't tell, I am passionate and excited about this, and hopefully you are too. I'd like to give you a walkthrough of a new book in progress for my fellow end-of-life doulas. This will be part of the Bridges to Eternity book series for end-of-life professionals, specifically end-of-life doulas, sometimes referred to as death doulas, or I like to call myself a life transition coach. A few episodes ago in my YouTube channel, I talked about the question, do end-of-life doulas need to have care plans? Like nurses have care plans, and yes, I am a hospice and palliative care registered nurse, but do doulas need to have a care plan? And I believe the answer to that is yes. So what I'd like to be able to provide in the not too distant future, once this book is completed, reviewed, edited, etc., published, is to have a tool for my fellow end-of-life doulas as to why this is so important and how to go about the process in a way that while in the beginning you might be utilizing the book to master the concept, that after you've done it for a period of time, you're just ready to hit the ground running and you've become a master at care planning. So the book we have here, it's going to, right now, the title and subtitle may change over the next few weeks to a month or so, but End-of-Life Doula Care Planning, a complete guide to compassionate care. And the dedication I usually dedicate to my wife, and as we go along crafting the book, as I go along writing the book, I may add in other dedications at that place. This is just a work in progress. So over the last few days, I have the introduction, chapter 1 and chapter 2 completed. Just to give you an idea of where this book is heading. I know there are end of doulas like myself that for a period of time has worked virtually. So chapter 3 is going to be how do you do things from a virtual perspective. Chapter 2 is in person, but chapter 1 goes over the why. Why is this so important? And then future chapters will be what do we do for somebody who has kidney failure or diabetes or cancer or complex family dynamics. There's going to be a number of what I refer to as pillars brought into play for here. So in terms of just going over, and right now this is in extreme draft format. I've not reviewed what I've written other than going through and accepting some Grammarly Pro recommendations for changes and rejecting others. But we go over why does this matter? And I believe that at the very heart of our work, this is, I know so many people, and I ponder sometimes, is it a cliche to say that this is sacred work? I'm iffy on that, but if you look at it from the perspective that we're meeting people where they're at in a non-judgmental way to provide not only a space for them, but also coverage and advocacy. Yes, from that perspective, it's a sacred work. Shouldn't we have an internal plan? These care plans are not outwardly facing. We would necessarily give this to the family or the caregivers. This is for us to orchestrate our practice for a given situation, a given client, I should say. And so why is it so important to plan? So we go over that. I'm doing this a little bit different than nursing care plans. So some of my viewers are my fellow hospice and holistic nurses. The most common care plan, you have a problem, you have interventions, and you have goals. Well, I don't like calling it a problem. To me, it's more of a concern. It's a concern. It might be a risk that the patient might face. It might be a symptom that they're currently going through, or it might be something that the family member's going through. I call it a concern. You call it what you would like, but this is the way that I'm rolling with things. We do have our interventions. That's a common theme, your implementation, and then your goals, what we're hoping to achieve. And then in terms of like what makes this different, there throughout every chapter, there's going to be meaningful case studies, conversation starters, assessment questions, and so on. And I'm writing this from the perspective that the reader might be somebody that's brandly new. They might not even be certified. They may not pursue being certified. That's okay. Or they might be doing this, having done it for years, certified or not. So I'm trying to write it from that perspective that everyone would benefit. Clear explanations, tables, just to give you an idea of what, and we'll go, there's going to be more examples as I take you through the first chapters 1 and 2. But like this is an example where we have a concern, what interventions we might have, and what are the goals. Now with this, we cannot guarantee the goal. We want to do our best to have SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time specific, when possible. But that's not always the case when we're dealing with end of life. Things are not black and white. Things can get very messy and very murky, sometimes immediately. So what I try to tell my wife, I love her dearly. Peter, you're an overcompulsive planner, OCP. Yeah, plan A, plan B, plan C, and all these other plans, and with the understanding that may all go to the S word, and we're going to have to fly by the seat of our pants. But I'd rather have one to several plans in place and go through them to have decreased anxiety and worry then, oh my word, I didn't think of this in advance. So again, some case studies here. One of the things I love about being an end-of-life doula is we are, from a point of view, encouraged to think out of the box more, even more than when I was a hospice and I still am a hospice and palliative care registered nurse. But we're more outside because we're non-medical support. And if we're extremely transparent, communicative, which we should be with the family, they know that we're not going to suggest a medication or pill. Not that we necessarily can't, depending on how we word things and phrase things. I get a little bit more leeway as a registered nurse maintaining my license in the state of Kentucky and Pennsylvania. Fine print, I don't know how long I'll keep Pennsylvania. But we're more like, how do we put this together? And one of the reasons I really appreciate the International Dual Life Movement, I graduated from their school mid-July, July 16th, not too far away, is they put us through some of these case studies that Anna, who's been practicing for 25 years, a lot of case studies. And these case studies are not taken from IDLM just to be fine print, but like, here, you have a retired teacher that you're taking care of. Okay, we have a lot to work with. And part of the importance of what we do as end-of-life doulas, I believe, we get to know our, whether you call them client or patient, I like using the phrase loved one. My cohort 25, they laugh at me in a good way because I would say I platonically fall in love with everybody, and I mean that. But to me, I love them platonically. And so here, I want to get to know them, and I have more leeway than in nursing because it's not that you have to get in and out in 30 to 45 minutes. So as long as they have the time, the family has the time to put up with me, I can explore more, learn more, and that helps me serve them so much better. So, and again, by the way, with the Grammarly, I really like this new edition where they put a little box here. You got 15 recommendations. I've already been through this at least once. Maybe there'll be an update in Grammarly down the road where I might re-review, but I don't always agree with Grammarly's recommendations. But now we're diving into chapter 1, just understanding the care plan basics. And I strongly, strongly recommend for my end-of-life doulas. This is important. This is important. Now, at the time of this filming, it is Tuesday, July 22nd, just to put this in perspective. Next week is the end of July. Next week, the International Life Movement is having their summer summit that is free if you register, by the way. They're having a palliative care doctor and a lot of wonderful speakers. I'm going, even though I graduated, because it's ongoing learning that's so important for each and every one of us. But putting things in perspective for this book, I try to write a portion of a chapter to a chapter a day. Some days I get more done, some days I get less done. Please keep in mind that while I am working to get business as an end-of-life doula, while I don't have paying customers, I have time to write. And since this is my life from a point of view, I could be writing well past midnight. This is not like you're working for somebody else and then you get into where I got to watch the clock. When it's your own business, your own passion, it's not that you have energy through the roof, but you can put in more than what you might be putting in for if you were working for somebody else. So with that said, I'm hoping to be able to complete this book sometime in August, worst case September. The challenge that I have, which is why I'm cautious for when I might have this published, is for the International Dual Life Movement. I am going to be working on turning my book, Crucial End of Life Conversations, into a course. So that's going to be a 14 to 16 week, no less than 14. That's my goal, is a minimum of 14. It might be more than 16-week course. And that's going to take a time investment as well. Plus, as we get closer toward the end of the year, I'm preparing more for my March, where I'll be the first hospice nurse keynote speaker for an interdisciplinary conference in South Carolina that I'm so excited to be a part of. So there's a lot on the plate, but I'm hoping to have this particular book done between August and September. Hopefully September would be the latest to have this done. So over the next several weeks, not necessarily every week, not necessarily several times a week for my viewers, I'll be providing some updates. So every chapter past the introduction and the conclusion, not including introduction and conclusion, can have what are going to be the learning objectives, and what are going to be the key concepts that you're going to be mastering, and then how what you're learning connects to your work as an end-of-life doula. This is so important for what we're doing. And I do believe that care plans are part of your blueprint for compassionate care. I don't know how to say this because this is where it gets difficult for me. In part because without even knowing you, I love you, and again, platonically. I know my classmates would be rolling on the floor laughing, and I'm not saying it for that purpose. But I don't like offending people, and I'm not here to tell you how to run your business. I'm just trying, this is where it gets difficult, because I believe in care plans so much that in a way I'm telling you, incorporate care planning into your business. And then I'm hoping that when this book is complete, you'll have another tool chest. I have a care plan book for hospice nurses, depending on the month. Depending on the month, it is either the second or the third bestseller. I think this month it might have slipped to number 4 out of the books that I sell, but most months it's 2 or 3. My bestseller is my hospice documentation book. The second bestseller, more often than not anymore, is my hospice eligibility book. I'm hoping, my goal is that it completely replaces Quick Flips, because that book empowers hospice nurses regardless of the local coverage determinants. It is so much more powerful than Quick Flips. But I'm hoping that this book, once it's published, will be an awesome tool in your tool chest, along with Crucial End-of-Life Discussions and some of the other books that I'm publishing to help you. So this, again, is focused just for end-of-life doulas. And then just some housekeeping. If you see stuff like this, this is just Grammarly saying word it this way versus the way that I have it worded. And sometimes I agree and sometimes I don't. But what we're having here is you're getting examples, which are partial case studies. And then in terms of the framework, the concern for my fellow nurses, the problem, the interventions or implementation steps they're going to take, and then the goals. So concerns are typically I try not to push more than one concern on a line. Interventions, 1 to several, and then goals, 1 to typically no more than 3. Just to be very clear, as much as I'm a proponent of SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time specific, these goals, being transparent, are not written in SMART format from the perspective of being time specific. What you're going to see in the different chapters, you're going to be specific. You're going to be seeing that they are attainable, that they're realistic. What is not going to be in here is going to be what's going to be the time measurement. There are several reasons for that. The primary one is to keep it simple and smile. By the way, I know Nomenclature is typically keep it simple, stupid, but I don't think anyone is stupid. So I'd rather take the kinder approach and keep it simple and smile. So the concern is like what needs our attention. Now, this is part of the pillars. There's physical concerns, there's emotional, there's spiritual, and then there's social. And I realized, as I said, that I just went out of the order of what's written in the book. Then how to identify those, along with documentation tips. And then interventions. And again, here I do have time bound, but again, in many of these, again, being transparent, even though I say it, in many of the examples listed, there's not a, this will be completed by. So just trying to be transparent with this so you don't read false advertising. So common is very common for people to have fear about dying, whether it's dying at home or dying in a facility. Caregiver burnout is so real. And so these are just simple examples. And this helps protect your clients from going through the unpreventable. So part of, as a hospice nurse, and if you're watching this, you're a fellow hospice worker, and my end-of-life doulas may also notice as well, a good death is often described as one that where as much preventable distress is removed that could be removed. So the more that you plan, the more that you educate, you're able to do that. You cannot promise them a good death, but you get so much closer to achieving that the more work you put into it. And by the way, I do have a September date just because of just trying to have it around when it might be published. And I do believe this helps you professionally as well. I know many of my fellow end-of-life doulas have liability protection. If you don't, I encourage you to get protection. I currently have through the NSO for a nurse, and then once I have paying doula clients, I will be through another organization. I'm still working on quotes. And then, updating the care plan. This is a living document. You should be reviewing it and updating it on a regular basis. And remember, your families and your caregivers are partners. One of the areas that I see hospice failing that they can fix is they're forgetting about the caregivers, especially third-party caregivers like visiting angels, home instead, comfort keepers, and so on. And they're more often than not, they forget about the family. I still remember my one coworker who shared the only reason that she stayed 45 minutes in a visit because the spouse made her. I they, I they. Um, Throughout the book, there'll be how to deal with resistance. Just again, I'm trying to give you, my fellow end-of-life doulas, the tools to do well and bloom in your practice. Again, there's going to be case studies. And with the case studies are going to be example plans of care. And we're almost coming to a close. If you're wondering with me looking down, I do have my phone with a clock because the full screen on the Mac, I don't see a time anywhere. And I mentioned over compulsive planning. And then towards the end of every chapter, there's going to be a take action. What did you learn, and how can you now incorporate this into your practice? So what I'm going to do, just considering the time, and I want to value your time too, is I don't want to go all the way into showing you what I wrote for chapter 2, just to try to keep this a little bit shorter. But chapter 2 is looking at a complete intake. What does a complete intake look like? And let me go out here just momentarily. And I just want to show you, this is just a map of where I'm heading. Remember, over compulsive planner, I do my chapter outline. And so what about chapter 2? In order to get to the care plan, you have to have an intake. So chapter 2 is getting that complete intake. Chapter 3, what about for those working virtually? And then when we get into care planning, there's going to be, what about hitting the major diseases that we're going to be working with? Now, forewarning, because I need this to be a manageable book, where it can hit, like I've been trying to price my paperbacks for my doula books at the $20, $21, $22, like under $25 per book range. That means that I have to watch how many pages because of the print costs and everything else. And maybe there'll be a book 2 to this. But there's a lot of disease processes out there, so I'm trying to hit the major players. So cancer, heart and lung disease, diabetes, which is huge in America, kidney and liver, neurological, which is going to hit the dementias. Then we're looking at emotional and social. Care planning is not just the physical aspects, not like fall prevention, bleeding, and so on and so forth. It's dealing with the psychosocial aspect as well. That is so critical for what we do. So how do we address these issues? Body and image change. I cannot express how much when you have somebody that is healthy and well, physically fit, and then they're just wasting away. Body dysmorphia, DY, means trouble. DY. Dysphagia, dyspnea, body image, dysmorphia, the changes to their body, the fear of death and anxiety. If you haven't gotten, there's going to be a lot of chapters to begin with. Forgiveness and reconciliation. And just so you know, when we get to chapter 15, I want to be very, very, very clear. Me, myself, and I follow Christ Jesus as Lord, Savior, and King. But it is not my position to push my faith, and I believe there's a difference between faith and religion. It is not my position to push what I believe in to you. So when we get to chapter 15, please don't panic. I am not going to be covering every religion. I haven't even gotten here to go over what I'll be covering yet, but I do have frameworks in place for my outline. I just want you, the potential reader of this book, I'm not going to buy that book because it's going to go over and it's going to push Christianity. No, it's not. Non-judgmental space, not my place to tell you what to believe. I can recommend, and I'll stop there because you didn't ask. So fellowship, spirit, and community, and then advanced care planning, complex dynamics, crisis planning, a little bit on here. I do not know if I'm going to keep that chapter 19 in place because I do have a book on legacies. I don't know. I do have some appendices planned. This may change so that you're aware. In almost every book that I've written, when I get towards the end, I don't want to say things fall apart, but remember I said plan B, C, and so on. As I get further into the book, it's very common for me to say, gee, I need to change my thought process on this. For example, this is where we're coming to a tight close. For example, one of the things I'm strongly thinking about is I have an intake form that I created with the fine print. The International Life Movement gave me theirs. I took theirs and modified it to a degree to fit what I think would work best for me, which I'm not saying would work best for you. But I'm thinking of incorporating my version of that as one of the appendices because what I incorporated in my version is not only a sample, well, I shouldn't say sample, a blank care plan document where you could fill in. So you're doing the intake and you could be adding that, the care plan items while you're there in the first meeting. And with that, I also have the risks for the major diseases that you might encounter, so that can jumpstart your care planning. This is just a work in progress. Remember, I said this is in draft form. So please comment in the comments below, questions, thoughts. I care, non-judgmental space. Thank you so much, and bye.